Famous Korean actor Lee Dong-wook's casual remark that Koreans do not eat mooncakes, we eat Songpyeon once sparked debate in China during the 2024 Mid-Autumn Festival. But in August 2025, Korean media suddenly reported it as if it's a fresh wave of outrage had erupted. So was China really angry again? Or did Korean outlets recycle old numbers for clicks? In this video, we're going to break down what Lee Dong-wook actually said, how Chinese fans responded back in 2024, and why Korean media brought it back 1 year later. Okay? So part 1, a strange headline about mooncakes. On August 21st, 2025, Korean news outlets suddenly lit up with an unusual story about the famous actor Lee Dong-wook. It wasn't about a new drama release or the actor's contract dispute or even a scandal in the entertainment industry. Instead, multiple headlines, and I mean multiple, like more than 20 of them, like 22, shouted almost the same thing. Lee Dong-wook says Korea doesn't eat mooncakes, Chinese netizens furious. Okay? And at first glance, the whole thing seemed absurd. Like mooncakes are a traditional Chinese pastry eaten during the Mid-Autumn Festival, not something Koreans would normally eat. So why was a Korean actor's casual comment about them supposedly triggering international backlash? The headlines piled up across different outlets, saying Chinese fans angry at Lee Dong-wook's no mooncakes comment. Lee Dong-wook sparks Chinese outrage by saying Koreans eat 송편 instead. 월병, 한국은 송편 먹는다. 이동욱 발언에 중국 팬들 발끈. Or Chinese netizens flood social media with criticism over Lee Dong-wook's remark. 이동욱 한마디에 중국 누리꾼 비난 폭주. And it doesn't stop there. Korean TV channels like MBN, YTN, and Channel A, like some of the major news media outlets, even produce YouTube clips about the quote-unquote controversy. And soon, guess what? Smaller YouTubers turned the story into short-form content, pumping it into people's feeds. And online communities filled with comments, many of them hostile toward China. But before we rush into the noise, let's slow down and ask ourselves, what exactly did Lee Dong-wook say and when did this all happen? So here's part 2, the first mooncake controversy. To understand why this became a headline again in 2025, we have to rewind almost a year to September 2024 during the Mid-Autumn Festival. That's the time of year when families across China gather to celebrate with mooncakes, which is a rich pastry filled with lotus seed paste, red bean, or salted egg yolk. In Korea, the same lunar holiday exists, but it's called Chuseok, and the traditional food is Songpyeon, which is a half-moon-shaped rice cake. That's on the right. On the left is the mooncakes. On the right is the Songpyeon. And during that holiday season, Lee Dong-wook was chatting with fans on the paid messaging app Bubble. Bubble is like Weverse. And a Chinese fan asked him if he had eaten any mooncakes. And his response was pretty blunt. Like, Chinese fans, Korea doesn't eat mooncakes. And he added an eye roll emoji, then followed up with, we celebrate differently. Stop talking about mooncakes. Now, the conversation didn't end there. Fans pressured further, asking what Koreans eat during Chuseok. And Lee Dong-wook replied, we eat Songpyeon. And even uploaded pictures of the rice cakes after searching them on Google because his international fans are curious about it. Okay? Now, the screenshots of this exchange quickly spread on Weibo, which is China's main social media platform. And there were like hashtags in Chinese language saying Lee Dong-wook, Korea doesn't eat mooncakes. And that trended. And Chinese online outlets did report on it. When? In September 2024. And the reactions were kind of divided. Like, some Chinese fans felt hurt, saying, they thought the eye roll emoji made him sound dismissive, especially since fans, pay for Bubble, the app, messenger app. And some of them felt he could have ignored the question or answered politely instead of telling them to stop asking. But others also defended him, saying Korean fans explained that the eye roll emoji doesn't always mean rolling your eyes sarcastically in Korea. It can simply mean like thinking or looking up. And they argued he was just clarifying a cultural difference and that he uses that emoji often in general, not to target Chinese fans. Still, some said, the phrase "don't talk about mooncakes" stung for some fans. And for them, it wasn't about whether Koreans eat mooncakes or not, but rather about the tone and respect. So yes, back in 2024, this really was a controversy in China. Articles were written, fans debated, and for a short while, it became one of those cross-cultural misunderstandings that spread quickly in the age of social media. Now, here's part 3, a controversy resurrected. Fast forward to 2025, August. Out of nowhere. Where is it? Yeah, right here. Out of nowhere. Like I said, Korean media began reporting as if the mooncake issue had flared up all over again in China. Articles repeated, striking figures. Over 32,000 Weibo posts and nearly 100 million views related to Lee Dong-wook's comment. Now, headlines suggested that Chinese netizens, once again furious, accusing the actor of mocking their culture. But when you actually check China's online platforms like Baidu, which is the main search engine, and Weibo, the social hub, there's almost nothing going on, unlike the Korean media. No trending hashtags, no fresh wave of outrage, and no new debate about Lee Dong-wook and mooncakes, unlike back in 2024, September. And here is a twist. Those numbers that the Korean media cited were not new at all. Like what? 32,000 Weibo posts and nearly 100 million views? They came from September 2024, when the incident actually blew up in China. The outrage, the hashtags, the views, that was all last year. In other words, the quote-unquote controversy had long since faded in China. Yet, in 2025, Korean outlets out of nowhere recycled it, framing it as a current issue. And as someone who is really interested in the media ecosystem and how the media tries to influence the public, I thought this was pretty interesting and fascinating and weird. To readers in Korea, to audience in Korea, it looked like Chinese netizens were attacking Korea again over something trivial. And to Chinese users, however, nothing of the sort was actually happening. The result, you guessed it right, the Korean comment sections filled with fresh waves of anti-China sentiment, all triggered by a story that wasn't even unfolding at that moment. And here's part 4, the media pattern behind the headlines. So Lee Dong-wook's so-called mooncake scandal in 2025 is just one example of a broader trend. Korean media has a habit of, and I'm pretty sure this is not limited to Korea. I'm pretty sure this happens in other countries as well. And, I should be careful about generalization. But from my observations, Korean media has a habit of digging into international social media, like China, like finding or even reusing small flare-ups, and then repackaging them as breaking news. So why does this keep happening? The reasons are both economic and cultural, I think. Like first is cheap content. Reporters don't need to send anyone abroad or investigate deeply. All they need is a trending Weibo tag or an old screenshot that once circulated online. in China and translate a few angry comments, slap on a provocative headline, and is ready to publish. Compared to covering politics or business in depth, this is low cost, high yield news. Second, it plays into audience emotions. Many Koreans are already sensitive about cultural disputes with China, things like kimchi, hanbok, or traditional holidays. And when they see a headline like Chinese netizens furious again, it sparks instant defensiveness and nationalism. People click, share, and comment, driving traffic and engagement. Third, it reinforces a simple narrative that China is constantly picking fights with Korea, whether the issue is really current or not. The mere suggestion is enough to fuel outrage cycles. And the Lee Dong-wook case is especially revealing because it shows just how easy it is to recycle an old controversy. Like numbers from 2024 were presented as if they belonged to 2025. And Korean readers had no reason to doubt it. After all, they weren't checking Weibo themselves. I don't know, because of potentially the language barrier, or simply they're not that interested in fact checking. And in the meantime, comment sections filled up with remarks like "Don't travel to China" and "Why do they always pick fights with us?" What's really happening then isn't a cultural clash between Koreans and Chinese. It's a cycle in which media outlets manufacture the sense of conflict because conflict gets clicks. So, what should we take away from all this? At the surface, this really, it was just a story about snacks, mooncakes versus Songpyeon. But if you step back, the real issue has very little to do with food. It's about how stories are framed and how quickly cultural differences can be turned into tools for clicks. In 2024, Lee Dong-wook's comment genuinely, caused some debate in China. And his choice of emoji, his blunt tone, and the context of a paid fan app made some Chinese fans feel disrespected. Although other fans in China defended him, pointing out that it was a cultural misunderstanding. And I also think that way as well. But that moment passed, and the conversation eventually faded. By 2025, however, Korean outlets resurrected the controversy, presenting it as if Chinese netizens were once again up in arms. But they weren't. The numbers quoted were old, but readers weren't told that. Instead, audiences were left with the impression that China was attacking Korea again. And this cycle tells us two things. First, cultural clashes online are often smaller than they appear. Sometimes they're misunderstandings that fade quickly. And second, media has the power to magnify or even recycle those clashes, making them seem fresh long after the original spark has gone out. So for us as media consumers, the takeaway is simple but important, I think. The next time you see a headline about outraged netizens in another country, like Korea or China, for example, ask yourself, is this really happening now, or is it a recycled story meant to stir emotions? Because the mooncake controversy wasn't really whether Koreans eat mooncakes. Everyone knows they don't. It was about tone, perception, and later about how media thrives on inflating small cultural differences into big cultural wars. So, what do you think? When you see a headline claiming that netizens in another country are furious, do you believe it at face value? And do you think the anger is really that widespread, or could it be a handful of comments taken out of context? And when the media brings back an old controversy and sells it as breaking news, how should we as readers respond? Let me know your thoughts by writing comments in the comment section. I'll be looking forward to reading every single one of them. All right, and see you next time. Peace and love. Bye-bye.